Hello, everyone. How's it going? I'm the wolf. Although, you may have heard of me as the big bad wolf from all these stories that we've been talking about. But as you can see, I'm not that big. And more importantly, I'm not so bad, I promise you.
I feel that it's so important that children have an opportunity to learn about the wolves and learn the true stories about what wolves are and how they behave, rather than what they learn from these fairy tales, which really destroy the true nature of what the wolf is, which is a gentle, peaceful, loving creature rather than a monstrous, evil, attacking animal. And I think by seeing the slideshow and seeing the theatrical performance, it gives children an opportunity to see the true story of the so-called big bad wolf.
Well, and she said...
And Granny, I just never noticed this before, but when you were gnashing down that treat I gave you, what awfully big teeth you have!
Well, I did always thought I had rather nice teeth. So I said, well, all the better to eat with. That's what you do with teeth. Well, she must have misheard me, because she thought I said, all the better to eat you with. Well, this apparently didn't go over very well, because then she said...
Well, I think we could take a historical perspective on that question. Really, cultural outlets like music and stories and art, from my perspective as just a dumb scientist, just have to do with expressing people's feelings about things. So, I mean, I'm really kind of ambivalent about the old literature. I know lots of people blame it for the views that people today hold about wolves and so forth. I don't really take that point of view. If you look at those cultural outlets for people's feelings, I see that more as a reflection, a result, not a cause, of the way people felt about wolves. So, sure, in days gone by, when humans had a different interaction with the wilderness and elements of it, for survival and so forth, you can see how wolves were portrayed. If you look at these old fairy tales and so forth, with the way wolves are portrayed, I think they reflect a sentiment that one could perhaps justify in its day. So it's hard now to sit and think critically about that. I also give people more credit these days than to be sort of influenced by those old images of wolves and early Disney movies of things with long snouts and saliva dripping off of big canines and so forth. I just give people more credit than that. I don't think the anti-hunting sentiment to these days can be traced to the movie Bambi or anything else. I think these are really superficial explanations for what goes on.
Wolf face, wolf face. That's wolf face.
Misunderstood. They were misunderstood.
I think that they're a nice creature and that we should still protect them and that poaching isn't very good.
I think that they're a good creature and I don't consider them dangerous anymore. I consider them cute and kind and nice.
I think that they're really interesting, like their way of life and the way that their society comes so close to the way humans live, like in a family.
It's added a bit more of an opinion into what I originally thought, because I thought that wolves should be protected and they should be treated sort of like how humans are treated, and they should have rights as we do.
I think they're pretty endangered, and we as humans need to help the wolves and maybe stop polluting so they can stop being endangered, because that's one of the most important animals there are in the woods and in the wilderness.
Well, I used to think that they were all vicious creatures and everything. They would attack if you attack them. But now, after that presentation, it just seems like they're not vicious at all. They just do mind their own business and don't have anything to do with us.
I think they're cool because they like hunt in packs like First Nations people, and First Nations people are humans, and so wolves are like humans because they all hunt in packs, and when they separate and try and hunt, it's harder for them if they separate, but if they're together, they are easier to it's easier to get their kill.
So that means, I guess then that begs the question, what about the movies and so forth that we see today? And I'd say that wolves are being romanticized a lot these days. I mean, there's all different kinds of culture out there and all kinds of different kinds of portrayals. I could just as easily, I think, argue that the way wolves are portrayed in a lot of movies today is overly simplistic the other way. It doesn't portray wolves any better. I will say that I think people learn over long periods of time. I think it is the case that people learn, as we learn more, we change our values about things. And then the cultural outlets where we portray, those values in art and various other outlets, they reflect those values.
Realistic? I haven't heard any realistic information. Well, I shouldn't really say that because there was a researcher in their Pimlott, I believe it
Doug
was.
Pimlott, yeah.
Prior to Doug, John T. Burge. Yes, he was a very nice gentleman, and at least he was honest. He gave you facts. When he done research, it was as he seen it, not what he wanted you to hear.
Right. Yeah, I'll let you know because it'll be the full completed thing, whereas we talked for about 45 minutes. Yeah, make sure you get... Where'd you catch that, Ziggy? That's a brook trout?
In my spare time,
Yeah.
I'm retired, I can catch this 4-pound speckled trout. And this was caught very close by.
Yeah.
And
You getting any sound? I don't know. Oh, you'll have...
Wait till I get some more fish. I got some nice fish.
Bring them out here.
Eh?
Bring them out here.
It's got a nice walleye over here.
You hold this.
I've got one on my wall about that
I'll let
size.
Ziggy hold this.
Yeah.
This comes from the lake that you're looking out in front here.
Oh yeah, let's have a look at that. Yeah, that's nice. Nice fish.
I gotta show you the big trout I caught.
Who do you think provides the most realistic information regarding Algonquin Park wolves?
I would say the Natural Resources Enforcement Officer, because he checks a lot of deer kills, and he's around Algonquin Park, and it would be the farmer, the trapper, and the hunter too.
Well, it's another lake trout.
Yeah, this
Nice
is the one I
looking fish.
caught. This is the hole I caught it in.
Yeah.
Here are some of the bucks I've shot, and
Yeah.
it's an enjoyment for me when you go out in the fall of the year and get the deer and bring some venison and some good old stories that you tell at the hunting camp,
and some polar bear here.
Yeah, this is just
shot this locally.
No, that's just given to me. Just a part of a polar bear, and like I say, hunting and fishing is part of our everybody's heritage down here. When people do that, and they get a big enjoyment with that. A lot of people look forward to go hunting in the fall, and it's a day out for them, and get in with the guys and get in the hunting camps, and I guess like it's a hobby, or it gets into your blood, and like making maple syrup for me, it gets into my blood, and I've been doing it, and I can't get out of it.
All set? Yeah. Is this good? Perfect. Think provides the most realistic information regarding Algonquin Park wolves?
Well, I think the park does an excellent job at providing information on the wolves. It's based on the research that's conducted by a variety of individuals over a span of decades, and it gets out to the public in the form of the Raven, which is the monthly newsletter that anyone can pick up as they're passing through the park. And it's written in a style that's attractive to anyone who's passing through, and I use information from those for my programs, so I think it's excellent. That's their job, to provide the most accurate information, so I think they're doing a great job at that.
Where do you get your information about wolves? Well, I guess you've answered this pretty much primarily personal experience.
Personal experience, and then what you hear from different meetings and with the scientists and biologists, and you put everything together in one pot and you stir it up, and, and you basically get, and you probably stick to more of your own information, what you've learned, because you live in the area, so you have a pretty good idea of what's going on.
That's what I'm doing in this documentary, putting everyone's views together and stirring it in a pot. Hopefully there'll be something to appease people's appetites with this.
Yeah, that's true.
There's some birch bark canoes, like those are.
Sure.
These are just some recent ones that were built by Stanley Sarsen. He had a couple of young lads there.
Yeah.
Just teaching them how to do birch bark canoes, just sort of passing down the trade.
So they tried these out?
Yeah,
they're
they're actually seaward.
So this is pine resin?
No, it's spruce gum.
Spruce gum.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Spruce gum, everything's cedar, and all the lashings there, it's all spruce root. Not a nail in these.
Who do you think provides the most realistic information regarding Algonquin Park wolves?
I think that would probably be like a effort between everybody. I know the biologists like John and Mary's the Verge, for example. They provide a lot of information about the wolves.
John and Mary's work to protect the wolves of Algonquin Park and their knowledge and expertise of wildlife conservation issues throughout North America have pushed conservation biology to a new level. I am truly, truly grateful that John and Mary have joined the Earthroots team in helping out with the Wolves Ontario project. We've seen the beginning of their fruits of labor over the last 11, 12 years with the announcement today on the ban on hunting and trapping for 2.5 years around the park. That would not have been possible without John and Mary's work over the last decade. On behalf of the staff of Earthroots, on behalf of the board of Earthroots, and on behalf of the Wolves of Ontario and beyond, I'd like to present John and Mary with the inaugural Earthroots Award for Lifetime Achievement in Wilderness and Wildlife Conservation.
That's very kind of you, and we appreciate it very much. We've encountered a lot of enemies and made a lot of enemies in the process of doing this work. And the fact that we've had the conservation community so strongly on our side has certainly buoyed us up through it all. We're encouraged when we see an organization like Earthroots, dominated by young people, strongly motivated people, and makes us realize that there's always going to be a future for wildlife. Thanks a lot.
I'd like to second what John says, and also I'd like to commend Richard and his team, because they've really been working very vigilantly on this issue, and they've proven to be a force that's to be feared.
Other information, like I know trappers, like they're out there firsthand. They know how, like where the wolves are, like if they're a nuisance, if they're getting into their traps. So, like I said, I think it's a joint effort between everybody that'll provide most information.
Who do you think provides the most realistic information regarding wolves?
We do. We do. Here it is. You're looking at it right here. You looked at it over in the diorama, in the various publications that we produce. There are also good papers coming out on the new genetic ideas of the wolves in eastern North America from the laboratory of Brad White at Trent University.
So, I don't know what you can get, but these instrumentations are where we do the DNA analysis, which helps us distinguish between the eastern wolf and the grey wolf. In particular, what we find in this area is that there is a mixture of 3 species. The western coyote first came into Ontario in around 1900s, and it moved eastwards and hybridized with the eastern wolf to make the eastern coyote. And so the eastern coyote is a larger coyote that we found in all of the open farmland areas between here really and now New Brunswick, and it's now finally arrived in Newfoundland. To the north, the eastern wolf is hybridized with the grey wolves.
What type of wolf is found in Algonquin Park?
It's an eastern wolf. This is a wolf that's different to the grey wolf, and we think it's the wolf that occupied all of the eastern side of North America prior to the colonists arriving in the 1600s. So we think that what we see in Algonquin is really the original colonial wolf, if you like, that the colonists first came across.
Who do you think provides the most realistic information regarding Algonquin Park wolves?
Well, I think, and polls show that the public thinks that non-governmental organizations are the most reliable source, more reliable than government. And the reason for that, I mean, you have to make your own choice about who you believe and what you believe. And you have to consider what people's motivations are. And there are, groups who are user groups who are representing a particular activity, and they're going to have their own spin on things that relates to their mission.
Yes, when I was thinking about this question last night, my knee-jerk response was, I don't think anybody has a corner on realistic information. Again, if I try hard to keep a high scientific standard about this debate, then I would say that the various parties involved have each construed their particular view as realistic, but it's in the elements of the poles of that debate that we scientists find the grist for our mill, which is their untested assumptions, their beliefs that lead them, their experiences that lead them to believe what they believe. But perhaps there's no evidence for it, you see.
There are lots of bad examples of publicly disseminated information about wolves as well. I mean, let's face it, there have been 3 fears that have been given a lot of currency about wolves in Algonquin Park. One is that they're restricted to the park. But again, as I just mentioned, the genetic information from the geneticists who have studied this population and wolves in North America generally flatly disagree with that.
Instead of regarding the Algonquin wolf as some special entity, really it is just a southern component of a much larger population. We estimate that the population as a whole may be as large as 10,000 animals that ranges from Wisconsin, Minnesota, Manitoba, all the way through Ontario to Quebec.
Well, one of the bad examples would be that the trapper, the fur harvester, was, the bad image, which we were killing. I forget the percentage, and that wasn't true, because we take a very low percentage of the Algonquin timber wolf, and if anything, as far as I know, with the trappers that I know and deal with, if you see any animal that is having problems, we tend to, instead of trapping it, we'd sooner see it, help it out any way we can, so it does survive. Yeah, this is the little bit that's here normally. This here beam on both sides, right from that corner here right across is full with fur hanging, and that includes your long hair, your foxes and your fisher and marten and mink and weasel, every variety, and you could have the odd coyote or wolf hanging. It's just, depending.
The second fear is that the population is being diluted by coyotes. The coyotes are coming, they're going to invade the park, interbreed with the remaining eastern wolves, and that'll be the end of the eastern wolf. But again, if you look at the genetic evidence supplied by the people who have actually dispassionately looked at this problem, not so.
I think in Algonquin we're much more fortunate in that we've got an ecosystem that is going to select for a wolf and select against a coyote. And so that's when we do the genetic analysis, we see little evidence for present day movement of coyote genetic material into the park.
I'm Michael Runts, and I'm a naturalist. So I guess I'm a bridge between a scientist and the general public. There's a couple spots here, there's piles of feathers, and there's like a mourning dove, and up ahead a blue jay have beaten the meal for probably one of the exhibitors, I think. I've had a few goshawks and Cooper's hawks and sharpshin hawks, the feeders this winter. And I think they've come back here and had their meals probably up here in these cedar trees.
Can you give me examples of both good and bad information on the wolves that you've come across?
Certainly good and bad information on the wolves. Sometimes the conservation groups tend to go to the side of the animal being endangered and possibly going extinct. I've seen publications put out by groups that have voiced that opinion that this animal is endangered. And also I've seen publications that claim that the Algonquin wolf is unique and only found in Algonquin Park, and therefore it's an island of population that is really precarious. that has been shown not to be true. That it's not, these wolves are not only found in Algonquin Park. On the other hand, I've seen popular letters to the editor in newspapers that this animal poses a real danger to both livestock and to humans, and that is shown not to be true either. So on both sides of the coin, also too, there's been letters from local hunters and trappers that these wolves are killing all the animals. They slaughter everything in sight, and that's a myth that goes back many centuries in its origin. But certainly on both sides of the coin, I've seen literature out there that poses very polar views, but also views that are a bit removed from the actual, I think, truth on the animal, or truth concerning the animal.
The last fear that has been widely trumpeted about Algonquin Park wolves is that Algonquin Park wolves are being killed outside the park when they follow deer out, especially on the east side of the park, and that killing has caused a decline in the wolves of Algonquin Park. But the only peer review that has been done on that suggestion came up with the flat conclusion that we do not know. We do not know was the words that were used by the scientists who reviewed the evidence. We do not know if there was a decline between 1987 and 1999, when the most thorough study of wolf numbers was done by John Taberge. A lot of people assume that A, there was a decline between 1987 and 1999, and therefore they must still be declining. That's totally illogical. It doesn't necessarily follow that there would be, even if there was a decline, which, as I have just pointed out, was never established beyond to any scientific standard. And even if there was a decline, it wouldn't necessarily follow that human killing outside the park was responsible. After all, wildlife populations are never flatlined. They always go up and down. Please don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying that human killing of wolves is justifiable or desirable, but one cannot say, as some people have said, that there has been killing by human beings and therefore the population is going down. That is a leap of faith that is not justified by a clear look at the evidence.
Certainly, John Taberge believed that the wolf population was declining. A room full of scientists agreed that he had the best data set for a wolf population, that it was among the best data sets for a particular wolf population that anyone